the most prolific and pure passing quarterback that this generation has ever seen. He made passing the ball look easy, and it's not.
It is hard to imagine anybody burst onto the scene in more spectacular fashion than Dan Marino.
Dan Marino walked into the NFL and immediately made every defensive coordinator in the league lose sleep. The release, the football IQ, the way he dissected a defense like he was reading a book he had already finished. 17 seasons, one team, zero excuses. People talk about the ring, but the legends who lined up against him every Sunday, they'll tell you the truth. Dan Marino was the most dangerous quarterback who ever lived.
The most prolific and pure passing quarterback that this generation has ever seen. He made passing the ball look easy, and it's not. They had to go back in time, knowing what they know now, that he was never going to win one. And you had a chance to start a team, and Dan Marino was on that list in his prime. You would be a fool not to take Dan Marino to start that team. And if they say different, they're lying.
Danny was a kind of a cocky guy, and that kind of rubbed off on you as an offensive player when you could look into the quarterback's eyes and you could see the confidence in that cocky type of fashion, and you know that, hey, we're going to get it done no matter what it takes.
How good was Dan Marino?
The best thrower of the football I ever saw. The quickest release you could ever have.
How good would he be in this day and age?
In today's game, it'd be astronomical what he put up. But he was a guy that didn't want pre-snap motion. He didn't want to change the snap count a lot. He had the best center I've ever seen, Dwight Stevenson.
Yeah.
That offense was humming.
What kind of dude was he when you sacked him?
You rarely got to sack him because you could literally run by your guy and ball's gone.
Out.
Ball's gone. He was, to me, the best thrower of the football I ever saw.
Jesus. Wow. Yeah. Seen a lot of footballs being thrown.
We had no idea of taking a quarterback, and we'd been to the Super Bowl with David Woodley as our quarterback. But when it looked like Dan might slide down to us, that's when we started to really think about changing our direction.
We were never out of a ball game with Dan as our quarterback, and I always felt that confidence, and our players felt that confidence.
You have to have a lot of confidence to play that position. You can't go out and throw 2 or 3 interceptions and think that you're not going to play anymore. And then you know that's why Coach Sherrill had so much faith in Dan. When he would throw an interception, he wouldn't say anything to him because the next pass might be a touchdown. And that's the confidence that Dan has. You know, he never let anything get him down, and we were always in the game till the last minute, just like in the Sugar Bowl.
But here is the thing about greatness, as it does not need a trophy to be real. Every quarterback who played in his era knew it. Every fan who watched him operate under pressure witnessed something they will never forget.
All my years in college, I never really remember really going out to watch the quarterback of the other team play. My first game in the NFL, Dolphins had the ball, 3rd down. So I kind of stood up. I want to watch Dan Marino. And he throws this laser skinny post for 20 yards, 1st down Dolphins. It was kind of a welcome to the NFL. That's not normal right there. I went and sat back down. He was always competing, always fighting. Don't ever give in. Don't ever accept, hey, you know, we might not get this 1st down or might not win this game. You compete to the very end. So that had a big impact on me.
Called time out to talk about him, called Danny over, and Danny sat there and looked me in the eye, giving him what my thoughts were. And he said, Coach, I'm not here to tie the ball game. We didn't come here to tie the ball game. I knew right then that he would get it done.
It's kind of crazy because the league changes so much and the game changed so much. I mean, you can go back to the Otto Graham and Sammy Baugh days where I can't remember, one of them won about 11 championships. And it's just a different game. So it's hard to pick one, but I just think one of the guys I've seen play the best in that position that didn't get his due was Dan. I mean, you put Danny in here today with some of the size of these receivers and his ability to get the ball out of his hand and how accurate he was. Unfortunately, he was fun to watch.
When you talk about draft mistakes, there's a long line of people who passed on Dan Marino that probably still regret it to this day.
Remember, I knocked a pass down in my rookie year in practice, just doing my job. You know, I'm rushing up the quarterback, and quarterback gets ready to throw. You mirror the quarterback's hands and get your hands up to knock the pass down. And I knocked the pass down, and he lost his mind and just went off, just up one side, down the other, about put your hands down and don't touch the ball. I'm like, Yes, sir. I went back, and I think for the rest of the practice, I put my hands in my pockets and just finished the practice that way.
Ask any player from that era one question: who was the one quarterback you never wanted to face? They do not hesitate. They do not look around the room. And that name is Dan Marino. So let them tell you why.
When Jimmy Johnson became the coach of the Miami Dolphins is when we had a chance to see Dan Marino's true greatness. When you are asked to win ball games, when a coach is so stubborn and bullheaded that we're going to run the ball, then finally the coach says, you know what, we can't run the ball. Dan, go win the game for us. And he did it repeatedly.
But Marino, if you look at the stats, dude, his first season, 48 touchdowns in that era.
Back in
dude,
what,
best,
70s?
best quarterback
80s?
season has to be in history. I don't care what anyone says,
That's
dude.
crazy, man.
That thing is one of the most special seasons. And then like every single time that I've been putting up and breaking these records, it's like Dan Marino had 170 touchdowns in 3 years. I'm like, what? How are you? I thought they ran the ball back then. So I mean, just because the rings, but I mean, Dan Marino's is, I mean, just right there. If he's on the edge of it, if not on there.
I was like 16 years old, and I went to see him, believe it or not, at Hooters, where they were hosting the Dan Marino show. Then I told him that I was a quarterback and I was a big fan. And I'll never forget this. He put his hand right here and said, son, you're going to be a good one, young man. You're going to be a good one. He's my favorite football player of all time. And I grew up in Miami watching him every Sunday. And many years later, when I came to New York, and obviously 3 was not available because of Mr. Babe Ruth, I immediately thought of wearing number 13 in honor of Dan. Most great quarterbacks are judged on winning a championship or not. Whether it's fair or not, that's another conversation. It's funny because football is a team sport, but when you're the quarterback, they almost treat you like an individual sport, like tennis or golf. I'm the most loyal Dan Marino fan you're ever going to meet, so it doesn't take anything away from it. Here's a guy that had, more passion and more desire than anyone. I remember so many games. I remember 1985 Monday Night Football at the Orange Bowl when they beat the undefeated Chicago Bears on a Monday night. I think he threw for like 400 yards.
Who do you think from your era, one of the most underrated pro football players?
Dan Marino was underrated, man. I mean, Dan Marino was doing exactly what Patrick Mahomes was doing in the 80s, where dudes was throwing for 2,000 yards. He was throwing for 4,000. I think Don Shula and the Dolphins mismanaged his career. Yeah, like they did not put the things around him. Like he goes to a Super Bowl and then never gets far in the playoffs after that. Like if Dan Marino's going to play 17 years for you and you're only going to win a handful of playoff games, like he has the most magical arm of anybody I've ever seen.
When it was all over, when the cleats came off for the last time and number 13 walked off that field, what remained was not an argument, not a debate, not a question of legacy. What remained was the truth that every defender, every rival, every Hall of Famer sitting in this room already knew from the very first time they watched him play. Dan Marino was the one, the purest quarterback this game will ever see. And no ring, no trophy, no hardware of any kind could ever make that more true than it already is.